The Pokemon Daycare can serve as a critical asset to competitive play despite the fact that it's easily missed and often forgotten about. The main function of the daycare is to level up Pokemon that you deposit without you having to actually battle with them, but as far as competitive play is concerned, the thing that we're interested in is breeding. Breeding is as simple as putting a male and female Pokemon together in the daycare and then running around until they eventually lay an egg, with the resulting egg ultimately hatching into the same species as the mother after you've done even more running around. Anyway, this already gives us some distinct advantages as we're able to do things like breed incredibly rare or hard to catch Pokemon, or even Pokemon that are normally unobtainable in the wild like starter Pokemon. And it allows you to focus specifically on things like finding the right nature or rerolling stats. If you're playing Pokemon Emerald specifically, you can directly influence nature by having either one of the parent Pokemon hold the Everstone item, which results in the generated eggs having a 50% chance of inheriting that parent's nature. But as for every other Gen 3 title, you're completely at the mercy of the RNG. Breeding also enables Pokemon to inherit rare and powerful moves from their parents, and as a matter of fact, there are some moves known as hereditary moves that can only be learned via breeding and are very, very powerful and open the door to strategies that you wouldn't be able to implement otherwise. Egg moves can only be inherited from the father, which means there will always be certain combinations of egg moves that will be impossible to get without the use of move tutors or TMs. It's also possible for a male Pokemon to pass along its own egg moves, so just be sure to look at every single option so that you can get the most out of your efforts whenever you're breeding for these egg moves. Every gendered species has a set list of egg-specific moves that it can be born with, but any move that a Pokemon can learn through TM or level up can also be inherited as long as the father already knows it as well. There are even some egg moves that can only be inherited from Pokemon who themselves had to learn those moves as egg moves in a process known as chain breeding. Stat ratings are also directly inherited from both parents, but the whole process does come with a few caveats. Eggs will always inherit exactly 3 stat ratings from their parents, with the other 3 stat ratings being randomly generated, though in actual practice these passed down stats can overlap, resulting in only 2 stats effectively being inherited. Since the inherited stat ratings are similarly chosen at random, it's possible for both Pokemon to pass down the same stat, with only the second stat being considered alongside whatever other stat was considered from either parent. Which, in order to know which stats even got passed down anyway, we would not only need to already know the singular rating for each parent Pokemon's individual stat, we would also need to know the stat rating for each and every egg that we hatch. This means that on top of taking the time to lay and hatch viable eggs, which varies with species and parent compatibility, you also need to track stat growth as you level up your newly hatched Pokemon either through duplicating rare candies or fighting high-level trainers like the Elite Four. Just make sure to keep track of any EVs gained during these battles so they can be properly factored into your stat calculations. Which, thankfully, just like with EVs, there are plenty of calculators online that can run these numbers for you. Most of these calculators can also tell you a Pokemon's hidden power, since its type and power are determined by stat ratings. But the random nature of stat inheritance makes it an inconsistent competitive option without a little RNG manipulation. Which RNG manipulation basically just involves tracking frames in order to pinpoint a specific spawn, which can control its IVs, its nature, and even shininess if you know those values. But that whole process can get a little bit complicated, especially if you want to do it on top of breeding, so we'll just skip over it for now. Either way, hidden power is more of a niche option as it is, and outside of a good hidden power, as long as you're conscious about natures and IVs and things like that whenever you're breeding and training your Pokemon, a fully perfect spread is hardly necessary to still have a competitively viable Pokemon. Beyond that, one of the major benefits of traditional breeding is that you end up stockpiling a large amount of good inheritable traits for future builds across titles and even across generations. And going across titles back to Pokemon Emerald, the addition of the Battle Frontier brought with it the Pokemon Judge, or the Stat Checker, whatever you want to call him. The Pokemon Judge will give you a variety of ratings based on the Pokemon's total IVs while singling out the highest stats among them with their own rating, each rating letting you know if it's very good, very bad, somewhere in between. And while these ratings might not be as useful as the exact values that you can calculate on your own, they still serve as a quick and easy way to confirm inheritance and speed along the entire breeding process. Which yet another addition to Pokemon Emerald that expedited the breeding experience was the ability to have the number of steps it takes to hatch an egg if a Pokemon with the Flame Body or Magma Armor abilities is in the party. This is not only massively helpful when breeding stronger Pokemon that have longer X cycles, but alongside influencing nature and being able to quickly confirm stat inheritance, this makes Pokemon Emerald a definitive game to do all of your Gen 3 breeding in, as it will save you hours and hours of time in the long run, especially if you want to have a lot of competitive options. This is of course easier said than done, but at the end of the day the process isn't too hard, it's just a little tedious and very time consuming, especially again if you want to have a wide variety of options. This can all get even more complicated if what you want to do is network your resources and trade Pokemon and items around for the sake of easier breeding, training, whatever else you're doing. This calls for you knowing what is already in every game, the resources available, what you need to do to get through it quickly, etc. and etc. Which was basically everything that we were doing throughout the entirety of our Gen 3 streaming event. All the different Pokemon, all the trading, all the stashed items, putting all those things together to get through games like Pokemon Sapphire and Leaf Green incredibly quickly, just so that we could harvest the resources by trading Pokemon over to them and then trading them right back out. That all pretty much came about to just bring these resources together, all in a singular title for breeding, for training, and for use in the greater challenges that the generation provides. Not only the Hunter Trainer Challenge that rewards players with Ho-Oh, but also both variations of the Ore Colosseum as well as the Battle Frontier in Pokemon Emerald, most of which you can find us doing in the link in the description. And if you still want more Pokemon content, or if you're just looking for a more compacted experience over the gameplay series, then you can keep an eye out for our Ultimate Gen 3 video. You can subscribe and get notified so that way you absolutely don't miss it and get notified for everything else in between. But by far the best thing you can do to support the channel is just to continue watching. If you're a new viewer or a return viewer alike, I think you'll really enjoy pretty much anything that we do on the channel, especially if you like some of the more old school, late 90s, early 2000s sort of stuff, which is a focus on the channel. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing we'll do. So just take a look, find something you like, and keep coming back for more, and thank you for making it all the way to the end.